All right, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us for Security Systems News weekly webcast series called Leadership Talks. My name is Paul Ragusa. I'm the editor for the publication. I'm very excited to speak with Gretchen Gordon. She's the president of Braveheart Sales Performance. Hi, Gretchen. How are you today?
Hi, Paul. Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And instead of me trying to tell everyone what Braveheart is exactly, can you kind of give us an overview of Braveheart Sales Performance?
Absolutely. Yes. So Braveheart Sales is a sales consulting firm that focuses on sales effectiveness. We have a special emphasis in the security and systems integration fields, and have been around since 2009, working with sales teams, sales leaders, business owners. We do everything from sales process and protocol, to sales training, to sales coaching, sales compensation plans. In short, we fix sales problems. And so we help organizations achieve their maximum effectiveness, and so they can grow profitably.
Excellent. Okay. Now, the name of this webcast series is Leadership Talks, so a good place to start would maybe we could look at some of the, are there trends in the marketplace that you're seeing that leaders need to adapt to today?
Yeah, so, what I find is that we work with an awful lot of leadership teams, I guess I would say, and or individual leaders. And frequently, since most of my focus and our organization's focus is more on the sales side, we tend to work with sales leaders more. And frequently, those people came from the sales ranks, I guess I would say. And there was a tried and true way of doing things. And the technology is going to continue to change at a rapid pace. Obviously, there are all kinds of competitive elements in the marketplace. And so kind of what we're seeing is, because of the different ways, in the security industry, the way customers are being approached, the way customers or potential customers are thinking about security, it may not be the traditional way that the leaders of organizations were accustomed to. So there's this idea that you really do have to adapt to the way your customers want to be interacted with, the way your customers want to buy their products and services. And so that's probably one of the trends that I see. Companies that will continue to change and adapt and be agile will continue. The pace is going to continue in terms of the need to change and adapt and be agile. So the leaders of those organizations that are able to do that are the ones that are going to be well poised for the future. Now, certainly, things don't happen in a snap, and we don't go from, one kind of marketplace, let's say, where, there was a tried and true way of doing things, to the whole world's changed. But I think leaders, if they want to successfully lead their team into the future gracefully, let's say, they need to continually be thinking about, what do we need to be doing to adapt? What do we need to be doing to, appeal to the right customers while executing with the team that we have? And then I guess I would say the other kind of trend that we're seeing is, because every generation gets named something. You got the baby boomers, and you got the Gen Xers, and you got the Gen Yers, and so we like to talk about millennials. And there's a lot of bashing that goes on with regard to millennials from the older generations, and I'm of that older generation, so I'm allowed to say this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm with you on that, so don't worry.
Yeah. So I'm allowed to say a little bit of this. And so there is bashing that goes on because we just don't necessarily understand. Not everybody operates the same way we do. And again, because of technology, because of changes in the marketplace, because of the way customers want to engage with us, because of, frankly, the way customers find out about our products and services is very different than it was, years past. We really need to embrace all demographics and age groups, and that includes millennials. And millennials, as a group, might have been raised in an environment that maybe they do things differently. So the most effective leaders are constantly looking for what are the best attributes that they can utilize from their team, and then how can they rally the team around what we need to be doing to deliver to our customers or our target customers. So, those two trends, kind of the adaptation of how customers want to engage with us, and the influx of millennials into the marketplace causes leaders to need to adapt.
Yeah, those are great observations, and there's definitely a paradigm shift going on in the industry right now. And then, on the millennial front, I think that's a great point, because if you look at it, I know compare with baby boomers, I think there are more millennials than actual baby boomers. So that's just a tremendous market that's going to be maturing in the next decade or so, so to speak. So ignoring that is really would be a mistake, Okay.
Yeah,
so
no, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. If I can say one more comment about that, the millennials, we can't paint them with the same, one brush, in that they only want to do things in a certain way and they're lazy, or, they just want to be on their mobile devices all day long, and, they don't do this and they don't do that, and they, whatever, all the negative things you might say. The reality is, though, is that they're, they've got brains, and they want to be engaged, and they want to do the right thing for customers by and large. And so real true leaders will tap into that mindset and that spirit, and millennials want to feel like they matter, like they have an impact, and so the really smart leaders will figure out a way to tap into that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And then sticking in that same thought process, were there any specific struggles that you see among the leaders that you work with? I know they're mostly sales leaders, so are there common struggles that you've been able to pinpoint for them?
Yeah, so time and time again, we see leaders who, I guess there's two answers to this. One side of the equation is leaders who are, and it's pretty typical, there are a lot of companies in the security industry that are fairly small and entrepreneurial. So we deal with a lot of entrepreneurial leader type people. And a common struggle is that we see them assuming or maybe projecting onto people that report to them or work for them, things that these individuals may not, just naturally know how to do, or may not know what they are supposed to do. And the common, theme, one of the reasons why we love the security industry so much is because there are companies of all shapes and sizes, and there are a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of entrepreneurial types in the industry. But what the common struggle that we see is that those people tend to think that anybody can do what they can do. So, there is nobody more able to, shift and change and be agile and figure it out and, shoot from the hip than the business owner. But that doesn't mean that everybody in the organization can do that. So that's one of the struggles that we commonly see, is that, excuse me just a second. Sorry, I had to sneeze. I didn't want to blow everybody's eardrums out.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the common struggles that we see is that able to figure it out and connect the dots, so to speak, when things aren't working, and they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They just assume that everybody else can, and so they turn over too much authority to the roadmap for them, or without giving them the specific expectations I was just listening to a woman who wrote a book. She used to run a hospital organization, and she retired a couple years ago. And she wrote a book called Gracious Leadership. And I won't go into all the details, but there were some things that were really relevant, knowing that I literally just left there and came to do this conversation with you. And you know, one of the things in particular that she drilled home, and I completely agree with, is that it's the leader's job to be very clear about the expectations first, and then you know, kind of provide the oversight to make sure that the individuals are executing the way they need to produce that, you know, expected outcome. And the struggle that I find a lot of leaders facing is that they think like everyone just gets it. Like, you know, like if I say, look, you got to go do this, or we got to do this, or we got to, you know, grow this much. And there's just some nebulous, you know, kind of here's what our goals are. It's not always that easy for people under the leader to connect the dots and go, okay, well, what do I need to do every single day? So from the sales standpoint, we're big believers in helping create the, you know, kind of the executive summary or the quarterly action plan. And we focus very specifically on the sales side, obviously. So we talk about a quarterly strategic sales action plan that is at the executive level. These are the big things that we need to address in this quarter. But guess what? We drill down and everybody has some responsibility for attaining those specific big goals. And it's not just sales numbers, but it's you know, a wide variety of might be we need to beef up our sales staff, or we need to beef up our tech staff if it's, you know, the other side of the house. So what are we going to do specifically this quarter to do that with measurable goals? And then who's assigned what tasks? So I find that leaders struggle if they don't put the vision out there first. Here's what the expectations are. And then secondly, don't help the individuals connect the dots on what they need to do on a daily or weekly basis to achieve that goal. And it doesn't matter whether it's sales or anything else, but you know, it's the same concept.
Yeah, those are great points, and it makes sense to break it down like that. I see where you're going. Now, how about company culture? I did want to ask you about that. I know how important that is. Do leaders need to adapt to the culture of their company? You know, to the workers available, or should they hire workers that fit into their culture? Can you talk a little bit about that, you know, hiring and culture?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, I'm not going to harp on the millennial thing too much, because we, you know, they're like, let's quit, you know, tagging or branding groups of people. But clearly, yeah, right, you know, clearly the executive leadership of a company is in charge of you know, kind of what do we stand for, where are we headed, why are we in business, and it would be important and valuable to articulate that. It makes it much easier for that then to permeate and create the culture of the company. Where I think the answer really should, you know, leaders adapt. You know, do they need to hire people that fit into the culture, or do they need to adapt to the people that are available? The real answer is it's a little bit of both. But I think that you know, your best leaders are going to engage the team in making sure that everybody's on the same page with regard to what this culture is that we want to protect, and why we want the culture that we want. And culture and, you know, values, I guess I would say, are really, you know, they're the overriding umbrella. And then, you know, goals and, you know, what are we trying to do and how are we going to treat people and all that kind of stuff kind of falls under it. But it's really the leader's job to create what that vision is for the company. And not just like, you know, what kind of customers are we going to go after, but how are we going to be viewed in the marketplace? And what kind of a place is this going to be? What kind of a culture is this going to be? And then can we create, you know, maybe vision statements or value statements that talk about what that means on a daily basis, and Now the problem comes in, which you know asked the question about, which is this whole concept of do we just do we adapt to the people that are available? I would say potentially. So you can't have your head in the sand and say this is what we are and this is what we've always been, unless they are truly values that are at the core of the company. The favorite places I ever worked, I was told in an interview that, we are a no asshole zone. I'm sorry if I, offend anybody with my language. But it was the greatest statement about the culture. We're not going to be jerks. We're not going to treat our customers poorly, nor are we going to treat, each other poorly. And so within that context, I think it's fine to be hard and fast about your culture, but you do have to, over time, it doesn't mean, culture doesn't mean that we're going to hire people just exactly like everybody else that's on the team. What it means is that people are going to come to work for you because of the values and because of the culture, and then we're going to respect each other, and there might be culture shifts that we go through over time.
Yeah, and then also diving a little deeper into the hiring question, would you say it's a good idea to maybe take a chance on someone who maybe has the right attitude, who has shown that they fit the culture really well, but maybe they don't have the sales experience or the skills that you'd like to see? Would someone like that be a good bet to take, to maybe train them and bring them up?
So I would say that you always want to start with, do we, the kind of the who of there's actually a book called Who, and it's all about hiring the right people, written by some very smart people. I would say absolutely, you want that fit, but sometimes companies can't afford to have, they don't have the infrastructure to train a novice, for instance, salesperson, that we're most close to. They may not be able to do it. They may not have the resources to do it. So you have to balance those. But absolutely, specifically from the sales side, yeah, you want salespeople who are going to get out there and hustle and sell your services and products, but do you want them selling them at all costs? Do you want them leaving a bloody trail? Do you want them, over-promising and under-delivering? Probably not. So you're exactly right. You want to hire them for the culture and for their ability, maybe their figure-it-out factor, their ability to adapt and change and grow. But you still have to think about, what resources do I have? Because it's far, it can be difficult and incredibly time-consuming to hire people into roles that they really don't have any skill set for, other than they're a good fit for the company. So on its face, I guess I would say yes, hire the people that are an appropriate fit for the company. I'm obviously especially close to the sales side of the equation. But from a sales perspective, you really are, you potentially are putting your company in harm and all the people that work for it if you don't have the infrastructure to adequately train people into a sales role, and you hire someone who doesn't come with some ability to be successful on the sales front. So I guess I would say those are, I'm not giving you a very straight answer, but
no, that's a good answer. Good. All right, we have a minute or so left, so I did want to ask you, get back to the leadership points, especially this kind of ties into your leadership style. Are there certain blind spots personally that you have as a leader that have been kind of a challenge for you?
Yeah, so I sometimes have difficulty doing exactly what I said good leaders should do, which is being, I go very, very fast. I'm kind of a stereotypical entrepreneur. I move from one thing to the next pretty easily. I get bored fairly easily, so I'm ready to, let's rock and roll. Let's get this thing going. And I sometimes, am not as clear about the expectations on the front end. So I personally am, so thank you for highlighting that for me. I'm personally working on that particular area, which is, what does somebody in my organization need to know to be successful? and do they know how we're going to evaluate them so that they can be successful from my from my point of view, and then giving them the tools and to be as successful as possible. So I'm as guilty as many of the leaders that we work with of just moving really, really fast and not giving people all the communication to connect the dots like they should. So that's probably why it's kind of top of mind for me, because I'm working on it myself.
Well, that's good that you're at least aware, and it's as a leader yourself, that's good that you're thinking about those things. And all right, well, actually that went by really fast. We're actually out of time. And Gretchen, thank you for joining us this week, and everyone tune in next week for Leadership Talks, same time, same bat channel. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, Gretchen.
Bye-bye.